is the Rangers Journal Night.
Welcome to the Rangers Journal, everyone. It's Friday night. We're going to go over the game last night at Ibrox against Athletic Bilbao. I'm joined by the two guys who already have done this 24 hours or so ago, but hopefully they've changed their mind in the last wee bit, or they've got a bit more depth or what do you call it, clarity on the game, and we'll go through it again. And the talking points I wanted to talk about, I'm sure you did cover last night, guys, but I want to cover them again, at least for my own sanity. Dave, welcome aboard. Are you okay this evening?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I think certainly football-wise, it's probably a better outcome than I envisaged going in, so quite happy with it, to be honest.
And Doug, thanks for joining us again this evening, mate, and jumping on board kind of last minute as well. Not last minute, it was a couple of days ago you were saying before, but yeah, welcome aboard this evening. How are you?
Always happy, yep. Here to bring my post-athletic club clarity to the to the occasion.
I'm sure there's a wine reference in there or something, but we'll move on from that. Doug, I'll stay with you because I was saying to you beforehand, yeah, I'm afraid I've not been feeling well this week. So after the game, I was kind of zonked out. So I didn't get to hear your comments after the game yesterday. And I did see, because I glanced at it on Twitter when it was going live, you'd brought up the starting lineup. Have you any change in mind since the game yesterday? Would you have changed anything from that starting lineup, Robin Proper aside?
No, I mean, I'd been saying to folk beforehand, I thought that changing the goalie would be a big decision to make running into that game. It would have put a lot of pressure on Kelly for me coming out of the cold. He'd not played for so long, and going into such a big game for me, the time to have made that change would have been the Hibs game, so he'd got some time. But happily proven wrong by Barry in that one. Kelly, all credit to him, went in. He didn't look nervous. He looked totally ready for the game. Everything you want from your reserve goalie really came in. He made some really, really good saves. And obviously, man of the match performance at the end of the day with the penalty save as well. So that was the big one for me. And as I say, I was worried at first when I saw it. Just would he rise to the occasion? But boy, did he.
Yep. Dave, I was worried as well, to be fair, and I've probably been saying, look, Butland needs dropped. He's costing us a goal a game. Certainly in recent months, he's costing us a goal a game. There's always a nonsense with him at the moment. I don't know what's going on. If it's we talked about it last week, is it concentration? But Kelly, he made a great save. But to be fair, there wasn't really much for him to do, bar a couple of standard saves. One reaction save in the first half where he gets up to it like that, but not really a lot for him to do. Were you surprised at that?
Yeah, I did probably expect a bit more from Bilbao, to be honest. Fourth in La Liga, I thought the keeper was going to be in for a pretty torrid time, whether it was Butland or Kelly. I think Kelly did go large patches of the game where he didn't necessarily have to do an awful lot. But again, going back to that conversation last week, the key was when he was called upon, he really did deliver. That penalty save was good, but I think for me it was the double save where he stopped it and then dived and caught it as well. And for me, after doing very little prior to that, I thought that was outstanding. And it's exactly what we were talking about last week. You need those concentration levels. I would have thought they'd be busier in this game, so it wasn't necessarily this game I was aiming at, but in general, that's the kind of levels you need, that when you're called upon, you can just jump into action.
Yep. Look, I need you guys to keep me right, because I am going down a bad path with regards refereeing, and not just the referee himself, but the conspiracy that Jose Mourinho alluded to, that it would be very hard for Rangers to get through this tie. Well, it didn't help me on these. And first, I'm going to go on first feelings, Dave, or first viewing. Robin Proper makes the last gasp tackle and brings down their attacker. The referee at the time gives a yellow card, which I thought fair enough. He's called to VAR. VAR obviously advised him that it's last man. Is this a red card? He goes with the red card. Now, I think Yilmaz is covering. I don't know if that's mitigating. I could be not aware of the rules. And there's another player, I think it might even be Sterling or Tav, coming from the left-hand side as I'm looking at it. Was the referee right to change his decision and make that a red card, or am I just looking for excuses to find fault with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say that he was finding excuses, but I think for me, to be honest, mate, it was 100% the right decision.
Okay.
When he got a yellow, I was quite relieved. I kind of thought, right, okay, that suit the system now. Hopefully, we can just move on. See, as soon as he got called to VAR, you knew what was coming, because I think Yilmaz was too far back to cover it, and I think it was the same from the left. I think they were just too far. If he'd hurdled that challenge, his next action is to get a shot away. So, yeah, I mean, silly rule in some respects. The fact that if he'd been half a yard further on, it would have been a yellow and a penalty rather than a red. But I think for me, I said last night, he just needed to let the boy go and have a bit of faith that Kelly would be able to deal with. And it's easy to say with hindsight, but for me, that's the kind of split-second decision that you're looking for pros like Proper to be making, to say, look, I'm just going to get sent off for this. I'm just going to trust the goalie, and even if they do score, still a hell of a lot of time to bring it back.
Yeah, Doug, I don't know. I can see what Dave's saying with that. I think if he doesn't make that tackle, either but he gets the player or he tries to make, or he gets a good connection on the ball and makes it. If he doesn't do that and defers to the goalkeeper to save, and the guy slots it in the far corner, we're looking at Proper for not doing something, aren't we?
Yeah, it's one of those. I think he has to try if he thinks he can get it, and you can see, for me, it's reflected in the fact that Balogun goes for the tackle as well. So they're exactly in the same mind, and it's simply a matter of Proper was a couple of steps further in field, that he's the one that takes him down. Balogun could easily have been the one that getting that red card had he caught him. I do think, unfortunately, I agree with Dave. The red was ultimately the right decision, because Yilmaz is the closest to him, but he'd be getting a shot off before Yilmaz gets to him. And even if not, I believe it's more down to, did they deny a goal scoring opportunity rather than necessarily as the man back. The man back obviously contributes to that, but yeah, if he's not taken down, he definitely gets a chance on goal. So unfortunately, Proper has to go. But as we sort of started talking about last night, weirdly, we kind of actually started getting a bit better after that.
I think it might have been, forgive me if I'm wrong, Doug, it might have been your kind of preview video on it, but they seem to be they certainly like a lot of possession and seem very similar to us. So it was going to be a difficult game to hit them on the counter the way we kind of do against better teams in Europe, and that's how we've had so much success over the last few years, well, since Gerard's time in Europe anyway. Did you see that last night? Did they play the way that you were expecting them to play? And what surprised you about how they did play when we went down to 10 men?
Yeah, largely. I mean, they're a team that play very much on the front foot. They're a high press and a high line. They kind of do play quite narrow, despite the fact that their sort of strongest players are their wingers. But both their wingers like to cut in, which is part of why they're so deadly, because they both cut in, very much like Journey does for us. But they've got it on both sides, cutting in and scoring goals or setting up goals. But they're equally adept at crosses as well. That was something that surprised me. I don't think they crossed it in as much as they have done in the previous games I watched. But that might have been a side effect of the fact that their striker had just come back from injury. So they probably maybe not been doing that as much frequently, because they had been struggling to score coming into this game. And I think we saw that against us as well. They didn't quite have the same attacking fluidity. I think they largely played their same game after we were down to 10 and hoped that they would be able to play through us. But we were ultimately just resolute. We defended very well. In particular, I think our midfielders were huge. Dave and I talked about Hadji in particular. He was massive defensively. That barely looked to the left-hand side defensive area without him being in there doing something, covering something, tackling somewhere. So that was a big proponent of that. And Rice as well. Obviously, he was one of the. We didn't mention him when we talked about the starting lineup so much, but he was the other big change. And he had to move position slightly when we reshuffled, which would have been a big thing for him. But he also played very well until he unfortunately had to go off the pitch. And we frustrated them more than anything else. And the only thing I think that was the sad thing was that going down to 10 men stifled our ability to attack, because I think there would have been spaces for us to potentially get a counter or two because of their high line. We did see it once or twice when we managed to kind of get there, but going down to 10 kind of nullified that a little bit more. But that gives me hope for the second leg, because if we can go 11 against 11 and we can show our attacking prowess a bit more, I think we'll cause them more trouble in the second leg, and hopefully that leads to some a fruitful outcome.
Dave, there's no getting away from it. Going down to 10 men, any point in the game, but especially so early on, in the first quarter of the game, it really was backs against the wall. I can count on probably one hand how many out-and-out chances we got, falling to Dessers, but again, no real support round about him for him to do anything. But I would say Dessers is not on form at the moment. We're not going to get a couple of goals a game out of him like we maybe got 6 weeks ago or so. But looking at the performance after, I think maybe Doug was saying we got a wee bit better after we went down to 10 men. But it was always going to be, at that point in the game, it was going to be a drain and a slog of a night, wasn't it? I wish I could unmute you from here, Dave. I'm sorry, but you need to do it yourself.
Aye, sorry, mate. Yeah, I was saying on the pre-match, I expected more from them, and I thought we were going to have a really difficult night last night. Those first 10 minutes weren't too bad, but yeah, as soon as we went down 10 men, I kind of feared the worst, if I'm being honest, mate. It's a team that's sitting fourth in the La Liga. They're not mugs. It's not some randoms on your qualifying journey. They are a good team, and they've been doing well over the season. I think for me, one of the key things is they rotated very heavily coming into this one. So I think it was something daft like 4 players from their previous game actually started this game. So I think that potentially helped us. As far as the attackers go, it's hard for me because I really do dislike Dessers, right? I don't think he's reliable. I think he causes us issues when he's off form. But I think what we have to say about last night is, especially when we went down to 10 men, we really needed someone that could hold that ball up for a few seconds to allow the midfield runners to get up with play. That's not Dessers' game. So even taking the goal scoring aside, which, I'm quite old-fashioned, I kind of like a striker that can score goals, but even aside from that, if you're not getting the goals, you need something in the other play. And for me, I don't think Dessers delivered that either. I fully accept he didn't have great service, right? That's fair enough. But the fact is, Igaman came on 15 minutes. He put himself into the game. He made himself available. He started holding up. He started carrying the ball. All things that Dessers hadn't done for the previous 75 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, I do think it was the wrong choice as striker, but anytime I say that, I'm pretty sure folk are like, but you hate Dessers, so that's why you're saying it. There is an element of that, but I thought for this game, genuinely, we did need the hold-up play someone like Igaman could provide.
Dave, I'm not Dessers' biggest fan, but I wouldn't go as far as saying I hate Dessers, but because he is a likeable character, but it's very frustrating that he needs 10 shots, 11 shots to score a goal at the moment.
It's the reliability for me, mate. I think, as a backup striker that you can bring on in games and pad your goal difference, absolutely fine with that. As your starting striker that you need to rely on for games, nah. As we said, 1 minute you can be scoring 2 goals in 5 minutes with 1.5 chances and, looks absolutely amazing. And the next minute he's taking 12, 13 chances and still not scoring. And when you're in a tight game like last night, you need someone that's just going to give you that moment of quality that will be a difference maker. And for me, that's no Dessers.
Now, you don't know if you're getting Messi or Morris Malpass, mate, so we'll move on. Doug, actually, I'm going to just ask you one question on the striking roles, and it's more to do with, I think we've probably we all know we would like, or in European games especially, someone who can hold the ball. A Ryan Kent or Morelos is what we need, and Igaman gives us that. What do you think, Barry? Is it just doesn't trust him yet? Is he too inconsistent to be given that role on such a big European night? Because Dessers isn't the player that we really need for these games.
I think it is just down to. I think it's down to the goal threat ultimately. Barry has mentioned in pressers that although he doesn't necessarily score as many as he maybe should from the chances he gets, he likes that he gets into the positions to have the chances in the first place. And I don't think you get that right now from Igaman. He's a different type of player. He reminds me a lot of Morelos with his movement, and the Igaman moves a lot around the box, but he's not often in the box. And when you're in big European games, you need someone that's going to be in the box to score goals. Now, Dessers, the catch-22 that I think we have is, for me, the ultimate scenario is play them both. Have Dessers as out number 9. Tell him to be in the box and be ready to take chances. Move about and find yourself spaces, and people will get the ball to you. And then you have Egaman who can hold up and have people around him like your Cherneys and runners from midfield like Raskin, who can play around with him and get the ball forward. But I think the problem right now with Egaman, because he's younger, his defensive work isn't as good. So you kind of have to play, say, for example, Hadji on the left, because you'll get much more out of him defensively, which you also need in Europe. So we're kind of just caught in the middle because we don't have a striker that can do both. Like, obviously, when you had Morelos would score goals and could hold up play. Right now, we've got one guy who can score goals, but not as many as we'd like. One guy who can hold up play very well, but he's not quite got that fluidity with his goal scoring. Or right now, it's kind of like when he does score, though, they're worldies, as he showed against Celtic. So I think that's the kind of catch-22. And so ultimately, he goes with Dessers because I think he reckons, well, we'll probably be defending more anyway, and I want the person I think is more likely to score, which statistically is Dessers at the moment, regardless of the fact that it might take him 3 or 4 goals to do it. So it's a bit of as I say, catch-22. Ideally, I'd love it if we could have Egaman on the left with Dessers up front, with Egaman told to pull infield so that he's kind of becoming a supporting striker, and then whoever your left back is would be told to give you the width from that, and you would have, say, the Raskin or Barron, whoever's your sitting midfielder, they would drop to help maintain your defensive solidity, and have whoever you're left, because Jeffrey would be perfect for that, because he could bomb up and down the wing all day and night, and that would be fine, and keep that covered and ensure you kept your width. But we can't. I don't think we've quite maybe got enough yet to play both of them, because we need the extra defensiveness. So ultimately, Egaman's the less trusted, the less experienced player, and so he's the one that unfortunately misses out.
Well, before we move on to the excitement of the second half, I'm going to throw this one back at you, Doug, because you are the founder and chairman of the North of Scotland James Tavernier Supporters Club. I thought Tav had a great game yesterday. I thought he marked Williams very well, and there was really not a lot from him.
Yeah, I thought he was kind of just like quietly efficient, which kind of I think fit a lot of the players. A lot of players, we didn't get a lot of them out attacking wise, but they were solid defensively. And Tav, I think, sat in that as well. I did wonder going into the game whether we would see him in the right centre back role or in the wing, because with Sterling, you could potentially have had Sterling out in the wing to Marshall Williams, which might have been the better option because he's younger, a bit fitter than Tavernier now. But he went with Tav, and I thought he did a good job. He's been, as I say, for me, he's been much better in the last 6 months. He had that obviously difficult patchy period at the start of the season. But ultimately, since he's came back, I think he's done well. Obviously, we've had to play him out of position. But I think he's largely gotten back to maybe obviously not his best, but kind of the best that he is right now, the best player that he can be right now. And yeah, so solid performance from him. Having Sterling beside him probably helped. That being said, there were times where they sort of doubled up on him, and that would have helped. And that's kind of what you want. I think when you've got players who are starting to age out and maybe missing a step or two or a bit of pace, you want to have players around them that will help. And I think when you have Sterling in there as well, you kind of get to see the best of everyone.
Dave, into the second half, and just we don't have to go and talk about it a lot, but Bailey Rice took a sore one, I think a shoulder to his face. The players and referee immediately knew it was bad. Again, I understand why the TV cameras didn't really let us see what was going on. I'm not asking them to, but we were left for a good 10 minutes or so, not really knowing what had happened to him. But yeah, he gets applauded off the park. He had a decent game. Very unfortunate. They show a replay later on, obviously, with the connection once. But really sad for the boy because, getting to play in Europe, getting to actually get experience of these nights is what we need for going forward for these younger players, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think just firstly on that kind of moment when it happened, he was being treated. I was really worried because the camera was staying away, and even when you kind of got the distant shot, you could see all the medical folk crowding around him to try and put a barrier almost up with themselves. So it was a worry. Good news being that apparently he's back in training today. So suggests it's not too bad. As far as his performance itself, I seem to be saying this a lot about last night. I thought he was really good without being amazing. So he didn't do anything that made me think, oh my God, that's brilliant. But he was calm, he was steady, he looked at home in that role, and I think that fits a lot. I think you've just talked about Tav. I think that saying fits him as well. Calm and steady without being exceptional. It was just a really good, solid team performance. I think a lot of the time this season we've carried some passengers. Last night, all right, maybe there's an argument, Dessers. Other than that, I think everyone, bar proper, less said about him the better, but bar him, everyone else I thought played their part to a T. And probably the biggest compliment I can give Rice is he did not look out of place at all in that side. That was a European quarter final, and he looked right at home as he was doing it.
I've kept Paul's comment up there. Paul, as far as the replay looked later on, and it's only one issue, it's only one thing I've seen of it. It did look accidental coming together, but I think they would have looked at it if it was deemed to be deliberate. I'm not quite that conspiratorial on that one, but yeah, it looked a sore one, and I say hopefully what Dave's saying, he's back in training, so that looks good. We didn't get the concussion substitute as it mentioned later on in the game. Apparently that's not a UEFA thing yet. Whether it comes in or not, we'll have to see. But I'm looking at the clock, and we're up to 80 minutes, and it's looking like things are going well. But we knew there was going to be a big, and it turned out to be 12 minutes of added time. But on that 80th minute, Dave, I'll stay with you in this one. Ball comes through. I guess Sterling challenges for it. Player gets the better of him. Save rebounds off. I want to say Munn. Sorry. But player rebounds off the keeper because of his name's just got a mental break on that. And it's knocked into the net. They go wild. I'm not saying they deserved it, but it was one-way traffic. And then you start to see the replays, Dave, and it's apparent that the player is offside. He's just come on, obviously, as well. Yep. So it's not ruled off for that. And you see VAR, or you hear about VAR, they're checking everything else to try and get it to stay. And I know I'm saying a lot here, Dave, but one pick it all one bit at a time. The decision comes back. No, it isn't a goal, but they award a penalty for a deliberate handball. Want to take us through that whole 20-second period? Because a lot there.
Yeah. And again, I said this last night. I think perhaps the best way I can describe this, right? It's one of the most bizarre decisions I've seen from VAR. And I watch Scottish football, so that's pretty impressive, all told. I mean, where do you start? Offside? Yeah, so he was, right? But the letter of the law, he was offside. Fine. I thought Kelly did really well to save that initial shot. It was at him, but, he still managed to get it away. Sterling, I mean, all right, by the letter of the law, you could probably justify it if you really wanted to, but I mean, players move like that. when they're in the box. It's a balance thing, and it's okay. It wasn't down by his side, but I wouldn't say it was unnatural. You can even see the ball coming at him. So it's not like he's made a conscious effort to hit the ball. He's just had his arm out balancing, and the ball.
Yeah, there's no movement towards the ball, Dave. It's not like he's lifted his hand up.
Exactly that. So, I mean, again, I guess this is where Jose's comments about the Bilbao favouritism comes in. I think for me, if you wanted to, you could justify it, but it's an incredibly harsh penalty to give, to be honest. And I would suggest there's an element of karma involved that Kelly did save it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to not Mason Munn, Liam Kelly. I apologise, Liam, for getting your name wrong. But Doug, come to you on that. I guess we're used to, because Dave mentions VAR in Scotland. We're maybe used to VAR in Scotland looking for ways to rule out goals, like going back to, a tackle that was in the opposition, in your own half, and then you score, 20 odd passes later. In Europe, are they just a bit more inclined to look for a reason to grant the goal or to have a goal scoring opportunity? Or are you like me and think this was a really unfair, and even by the letter of the law, I don't think it really should have been a penalty. It wasn't deliberate for me.
I'm secret option C, and while I agree that it's a bit farcical, I actually think that whole scenario ran exactly the way it should have by letter of the law. Now, whether or not we like the letter of the law and agree with the letter of the law is a separate question. But the reason it's a bit farcical nowadays is because obviously it takes so long to go through, because they're going through basically, right, we've got a goal here. Has anything happened running up to that goal that means that it shouldn't be a goal? And so they're going back through all of the things. So obviously you've got there was also, I don't know if we mentioned it, there was also a potential handball by the Bilbao player as well.
Yeah.
So you've got going through the offside, and then the first offence is ultimately the handball from Sterling. I don't think it was for. I don't know if they actually have said conclusively it was deliberate, but I think it's because there's 3 handball offences you can get. So there's deliberately touching it, so Suarez style, if you like. There's if you score a goal by using your hand and you directly score from that. And my assumption is that it's the middle one, which is touches the ball with their hand/arm when it is in a position that makes their body unnaturally bigger, and that position is not a result of their body moving fairly as part of play. Now, there's a photograph I put in the group chat earlier that I encourage people to look at, because I think for me it makes it look obvious, because Sterling is absolutely like gull-winged out with his hands, and to me it doesn't look natural in the slightest, and I think that's ultimately why. Had his hands been lower down, he potentially gets away with it, because it barely touches him, and it doesn't, like, the ball doesn't divert in any way. It doesn't make it any more difficult for the Bilbao player to get the ball. It just grazes his hand slightly. But for me, it's the fact that his arms are totally spread out and straight. If they're just in slightly, the ball doesn't touch him at all, and I think that's why they end up giving the penalty for it, which is ultimately the right decision, because although they've scored, because had they not given that one, then it would have been offside. So obviously they don't get the goal. The goal was ruled out regardless whether or not they give the penalty, because there was the offside. So it was just whether or not do they get the opportunity to take the penalty, which they obviously get given. As I say, perhaps the unpopular choice, I do think it was the right decision. I don't particularly like it, because like Dave said, the ball comes straight over Sterling's head. He probably didn't see it at all. It's just let's say if his arm is not, because it's basically extending his body by about a meter. So if his arm's not out, then there wouldn't have been a problem.
I'll need to have a look at it again, Doug and Dave as well, because I didn't feel like his hands were as high as you're making out, but I could be wrong. Dave,
I'll see if I can
get come in on that if you like.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, I don't think they were massively high, but they were absolutely kind of straight out.
Right.
This is where I've seen comment, Paul, ask ex-players how they move or jump for a ball. You see this 100 times a game. Defenders trying to jockey attackers in the box, try to keep their balance, try to block off the defender like this. They all do it, right? So is it natural, as in if I was down in the pub having a pint, no. I'm not going to be stood with my arms out like that. But is it natural in the sense of a defender trying to defend his box? Aye, absolutely it is. So I struggle with it. As I said, if you genuinely wanted to make an argument to justify it, I'm pretty sure under the current rules of the game you could. But for me, incredibly, incredibly harsh.
Well, Dave, let's move on to the penalty itself. And I just had the feeling he was going to save it. He looked confident, Kelly, that is. He looked confident. And when when you initially see it and it's saved, I don't know, I think I just assumed he caught, he saved it with his hands, but it's a wee bit closer than I felt when I look back on it. No, he gets up his legs, he's going down the middle. It's a good technique to lift his legs up, but it skies it over the bar, and it's you get carried away because it's still a corner, so you're like, oh, well, we don't let them score from this one. But great goalkeeping. Penalties are always a bit of a lottery, and you always look bad if you go down the middle and don't score. So but stuff him. I don't think they deserved that goal anyway. So what do you think on the actual save itself?
Yeah, I thought it was class. I actually said last night that I didn't think Butland would have made that save. And Doug kind of pushed back, saying he thought it was quite similar to the first penalty in the Fenner shootout. So I went back and had a look at that, and I would argue that the ball went to Butland more. What I was kind of getting at, and I think you've just alluded to it there, Billy, is the way that he kind of left his leg hanging to cover off that shot down the middle. So I thought it was a brilliant save. I think he did really well, and that was probably the cherry on the top of his performance last night. But yeah, great penalty save. Screw them, basically. I mean, as you say, it's not great if it goes down the middle and it fails, but for us, as I said before, I'd argue it was almost karma for the fact it was such a soft penalty to give in the first place.
Let me pull up the picture you've loaded there, Doug. That's down for me, and well, I'm not. I just didn't think it was
in the attacker, man. I mean,
it doesn't matter that it's down, though. It's like I say, he's completely spread out, and that.
But that's if you're running to clear or to chase down the defender. That is natural.
The only time you run like that is if you're pretending to be an aeroplane. Yeah.
Or when Dave's standing in the pub doing that. I don't know. I don't agree with. I think it still was soft either way you look at it.
Yeah.
Doug, again, give us your thoughts on the penalty, and then we'll see the match out and discuss where it leaves us at half time. What did you think of the save?
Yeah, good save. Like Dave said there, I thought it was reminiscent of Butland's first save and the penalty shootout. It's one of those where he's gone down the middle and the goalkeeper's got the wherewithal to get a leg there. I do take Dave's point. I do think Kelly has to lift his leg slightly more. Butland, it was slightly more straight at him, but you have to have the wherewithal as a goalkeeper to make sure you keep your legs straight when you're diving, so you've got that opportunity. Kelly gives himself that, and obviously makes a great save and great moment for him. Said it last night as well. Obviously, big Rangers fan, didn't get his chance the first time around, and now he's got to play in a major European game and had a storming performance as well. So very happy for him.
So we see the game out. I can't remember if they missed that one at the post, the cross in, and he picks up his wrong leg. Can't remember if that's before or after the penalty, but nothing really of note. No big chances for either side. I guess we pressured in the last few minutes. I seen a very funny video of a player being chased by 40 odd kids, and that was very much like Eggman in the last couple of minutes as he's going to the corner and all the athletic players are chasing him into that corner. But I think he does really well. I'm not a huge fan of going into the corner. I know why they do it, but quite often they get the ball taken off him and all of a sudden that's straight up the park. So I don't know about trying to hit the ball back to your goalkeeper or something might be a good idea to do as well. But we see the game out. It's nothing each. It's half time, Doug. Obviously, we want to hit them with a full strength 11 next week and not get players sent off. But what do you expect of the second leg? Are we in a good position, or is it just because we had that 10 men from such early in the game that we're looking at it good? Because going in, I think I really thought we needed probably a 2-goal advantage.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to 90 minutes. Anything can happen. Our away form in Europe has been very good this season. You know, we've gone away to Nice and trumped them. We went away to Fenerbahce, won by 3 when it should have been 6. So we had that great away performance against Malmo. We've had lots of really good away performances this season. So I think they can be confident going into that game, that they can still do something. Especially if Bilbao continue to struggle to score goals. So, like I say, it's on a knife edge. They're obviously still a great team. They could quite easily turn up in that game and beat us 3 or 4-0. But we could quite easily go there and win 2-0. So I think it could go either way. I mean, we're talking about how well we did with 10 men. Had we had 11 men on the pitch for all of the game last night, that has still been a really good performance. Obviously, it's made that better by the fact that we had 10 and indeed 9 minutes for the last 9 men for the last few minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, the big thing now is I think we've got some minnow team at the weekend to play every youth player under the sun. I want to see Munn on the pitch, Curtis on the pitch, whoever else. I'll go and turn up if they need a man. Wrap everyone else in cotton wool and just keep them for the second leg, because anything can happen.
Dave, Doug turning up Pittodrie stripped to be his boots on to see if he gets on the park. But Paul, I'm not going to address that comment. I'm not even going to bring it up on the screen. Why would you say something like that? Why would you put yourself out there to be what the... They're going to score 10 now because you said that. Don't you realise that's what happens? You jinxed it. Anyway, moving on. Sorry. Dave, yeah, your feelings at the end of the half-time point in this tie?
I'm delighted, mate. I'm actually slightly different, given the contrasting form at home and away lately. My fever and hope, even before we lost proper, was that we'd come out of this one still in the game. I think I said on the pre-match I thought it would be a narrow loss, like a 2-1 loss or something, and that would have been okay because it gives us something to take over there and to chase. I think the fact it's finished 0-0, the fact that we've got our best, or arguably our best defender coming back in, we've got one of our starting midfielders coming back in. The other starting midfielder didn't get a booking, so he's good for the second leg. So we're going to be far more strong next week than what we were in this one. And that's no disrespect to any of the guys that came in, other than Proper, because he's a FUD as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I'm actually quite content. If you'd offered me this situation before the game even kicked off, I'd have bit your hand off for it, mate.
Good. Before I forget, at the end of the pod, can I mention our sponsor? Off to the Match I Go. Obviously, we have a offer at the moment, so 10% off if you use the code Journal10. So either scan the QR code that's on the screen or go to www.offtothematchigo.co.uk. Have a look around the site, see if you like anything. If you do, you get 10% off if you go for it. And also, I did bring it up on the screen. Thank you very much to the Catalyst who's joined our YouTube subscription service as a member. Thank you very much for that. I know I did bring you up on the screen earlier on, but I wanted to mention you by name. So thanks again for that. Dave, it's an important point that Doug's mentioned about the team, because we're going to look forward to Pittodrie. It's a game that we get, there's no love lost up there. They hate us. It's always I'm not going to say a cauldron. It's always a good atmosphere up there. It's always great to score 2 goals in injury time and come away 3-2 winners. But with the league position or the league situation in mind, I know it's not technically over, but it's probably over. Is there a case for playing the out of form, or not out of form, the younger players, or the players that haven't been getting a game, like Ross McCausland, players like that, just to see us through with no injuries for the more important game, which is on Thursday?
Yeah, so I think that's a bit of a double-edged sword for me. I think you absolutely want to use the youth to cover for anyone that's potentially high risk of injury or a bit fatigued coming out the back of the Bilbao game. But equally, I don't think you replace every single one of them, because of what the league itself's done. It's in this run of games, and you want to build that kind of consistency. If we go and get papped 5-6-0 off Aberdeen, there's going to be riots before we even get to Thursday. So I think you've got to juggle the kind of resting folk alongside still trying to achieve a result out the back of that.
And Doug, you obviously mentioned it earlier, bringing the youth in. Is there a balanced way of doing it? The thing is that if we go, as Dave said, and get beat 5-0, it literally has no bearing on the game, because the teams that turn up for the league games at the moment are not the same team that turn up for Europe. So does it really matter? I mean, it's not, you wouldn't like to get beat 5-0 by Aberdeen. But does this weekend match really matter? Would you be inclined to either play the second string or the youths?
First of all, where does this get losing 5-6-0 to Aberdeen coming from? I'm not taking any
That's
of that
Dave.
nonsense. For
Dave brought it
starters, you can go back to 2010. They've got nowhere near 5 goals, so I don't. I've said that now that they'll go and bloody do it.
Hey, do you want to zip it there, John?
Yeah. What did I mention earlier on when Paul brought this up?
I do think there's a balance. I mean, many of us have banged on all season about wanting to see the younger players play, and if they can't play now at a point where we've got a much bigger game afterwards in a league fixture that ultimately means nothing other than the pride and angst of beating Aberdeen, then when are we going to play them? Obviously, Rice is presumably not going to be available to play, but Finlay Curtis, I don't see why he can't get on. Stick him on the left hand side, see what he can do. When I talk about youngsters, I mean that let's not forget that includes Egerman. He is a youngster as well still. So stick him in and put him in that number 9 position and give him the opportunity to feel a bit of that. Maybe he goes and scores a hat trick and gives him and does give the manager something to think about. I mean, Kelly should keep his place. You wouldn't mess with that.
I think he probably will, Doug.
Yeah, gets more minutes to get behind him so that he'll be ready for the second leg. Tavernier plays rain or shine regardless, so he's almost certainly going to be there. I think it's a perfect time to potentially you play proper. He's out. He's suspended for the next game, so play him. Stick NCL in. Opportunity for him to come back. As I say, I'd be wrapping Suter and Balogun and Cotton Wool to keep them. Suter, I think he's a massive player to have coming back. Maybe he wants to give him some minutes, though. I don't know, but whoever starts on the left is the one that won't start the following game, I think. So you maybe see Jeffy. Barron can come in. So there's plenty of options for players that can come in. I think he probably still plays Czerny because he needs the attacking. His attacking now, and also he has actually kind of been off the boil a little bit over the last few games. So I'd like to see him continue to play. Just ideally, maybe he gets a goal, gets a bit of confidence up. So there's a little bit of play in there. I'm being a little bit playful when I say play all the youngsters and me. So there are some players in there that we almost certainly will see, but I definitely think there's some players to take out and just give a rest. Like for example, Hadji putting an absolute shift in, so I don't expect to see him play because I potentially expect to see him play in the next game. But I think it would be good to give him a bit of a rest after the effort that he put in. There's apparently I'm not sure if it was confirmed or not, but I read a rumor that Yilmaz came off because he'd taken a knock. Because Yilmaz had actually played really well up to that point. A lot of people were a bit confused by that substitute. So if that's true, then I would be starting Jeffy with, again, the view of hopefully Yilmaz is fit to start the next game because, as I say, he played very well. So there are options in there, but I do think you should give some players a rest after a big shift, like obviously with 10 men as well. So everyone's having to put in that extra 10%. Also, a couple of people in the comments have mentioned Lawrence. He wasn't in the squad at all. Not 100% sure whether he's injured again or what, but if not, get him in. He can fill in some minutes as well.
Dave, one player that Doug hasn't mentioned, thankfully, because I wanted to bring him up. I think it's vital that Danilo gets some time. So whether he plays with Egerman or he plays whatever, but we need him back. We need another option that isn't Dessers and Egerman. If he's not trusting Egerman for finishing purposes, we need Danilo back.
I was doing my best earlier not to kind of shout God no when Doug mentioned playing Dessers and Egerman together. And the reason for that is I don't think that they work well. They just haven't majority of the time that I've seen them. I think it's the reverse, actually, with Danilo and Igaman. I think probably the most proficient we've looked in attack was that wee spell when Clement was still in charge and he played the two of them as a pair. Danilo obviously sitting just behind Igaman. I thought that was really effective, and for me, I'd like to see more of that. So, absolutely get some minutes in Danilo, but also get Igaman on with him and start trying to build on that relationship, because that was a real positive. And then I kind of mind what happened. I think Danilo picked up a wee injury, and we just never saw it again, really, after that.
Yeah. I mean, Danilo came on against Dundee, and he made space. I think he made space for Tavernier's goal. It could be getting mixed up, but he's not just he's an intelligent player, and I'm not trying to make him out to be the next original Ronaldo or anything, but he offers us something that Dessers doesn't. So that's my thinking of why I'd like to see him, and also just that we need him back, especially if we hopefully get through this European tie and progress. We could really be needing him, because last time we got this far, we had Aribo playing up front on his own, wasn't he? So we're not looking for that.
Yeah.
Doug, I'll come to you just for some final thoughts on last night and the week ahead. What you hoping to see? And I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think, like Dave said, we want to try and get a good performance, a good result at the weekend, just keep the momentum going. We do need to go into the next Euro tie with our heads up. And just to break this cycle of yo-yoing up and down with performances and results and things as well. Even though we can say the league's gone and it doesn't matter and everything else, but it's still really tiring and really just sort of draining for them to deal with the team constantly flipping like that. So I do want to see him change the team up a bit. As I say, I want to see some key players rested for the more important match. But at the same time, I still want those coming in. They've still a new manager to potentially impress. There's still positions to be fought for in the future. So there's no reason they can't come in and put a good shift in, a good performance. And as I say, I ideally get a win to keep that momentum going and go into that next game, as I say, with ourselves feeling positive, the fans feeling positive. Because like I say, that's an excellent point as well. Cortez is someone I've been wanting to see minutes from for months now. So I doubt we will see him at the weekend. Maybe afterwards, if depending on how things go. But the main thing is to be going into that next leg with confidence. Because like I say, it's 90 minutes. Anything can happen. We've shown to be playing really well away from home this season. So either way, as long as we go out and put in another strong performance, regardless of the result, I'll be pretty happy. I mean, we've gotten to, as it stands, a quarter-final of European competition again, which is an excellent result. So, everything that we do is a bonus at the moment. But I do genuinely believe that we can potentially win that game. So let's do everything we can to make that happen.
Well, Doug, thank you very much for coming on. Dave, I think Cammy said a couple of weeks back when we're in this position of losing a couple of games in the league that the league doesn't matter, except it really does. And that's Rangers fans summed up, isn't it? Yeah, we all know the league's gone, but we still want results in it, don't we?
That's it. I think there's always that element of pride. Even I think if we're being realistic, right? We all know, and again, I said this last night, the league isn't mathematically done, but it's done. But part of playing for Rangers is having that pride in yourself, that desire to go out and win every game. So even though it's done, the expectation is still that these players will bust their arses to deliver decent victories to the fans. Barry's talked a lot about kind of getting across to the players what it means to play for Rangers. Well, I think that's 101 of playing for Rangers. There's no such thing as a dead rubber. We'll sit here on pods and we'll talk about them and we'll say, it doesn't really matter because there's no chance we're going to win it. But the simple fact is they are expected to win every game. And I don't see this being any different. If anything, it should be more prevalent with the fact we've got a character like Ferguson in temporarily doing it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave. Everyone, thank you very much for watching this evening. That will do us. We're just at the 50-minute mark. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Doug, for coming in. And thanks for your post-match last night as well. I will get round to watching it this evening at some point, but thank you very much for joining me tonight. Everyone, off to the match I go as a sponsor. You get 10% off there by using the promo code Journal10. Please tell your friends about us. Please like and subscribe yourself if you haven't already. And if you like listening to the podcast goes out as an audio podcast and all the kind of regular Apple, Amazon, Spotify, all the usual ones. You can listen to podcasts there. If you miss one, you can catch up with us at your leisure. So again, thank you very much for watching. And remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night. Good night.